all know by now that spirits are all around us, and the past rears its head much more often than the history we are shown. I have a penchant for the unknown, a fascination that has stuck with me since my youth. It takes me on wild rides, through mental shifts and physical places of fear, as I push past my limitations and learn more about the world, both the natural and the supernatural. Stepping into the tales I have here, West Virginia is crawling with paranormal stories of the weird and often terrifying encounters. Come take a listen and discover for yourself what dark secrets the Mountain State holds. Our first stop takes us through a tunnel of paranormal activity. A tunnel, in fact, that was completed in 1857, directly underneath the Enon Baptist Church Cemetery, which was as active as far back as the 1700s. At a length of nearly 1,100 feet, this abandoned train tunnel is now part of the North Bend Rail Trail and is also known as Flinderation Tunnel because of Flinderation Road that lies nearby. This paranormal hotspot has thrill seekers flock to it year-round due to the activity that is said to be within the tunnel itself. Legend has it that, when the tunnel was a working train tunnel, 2 of 3 railway workers lost their lives as a train passed through, going too fast with no warning to spare them. One of the 3 was able to make it to an alcove safely, sparing his life. Others say the ghost train can still be felt and heard as you pass through the tunnel. Even children's laughter and ghostly moans can be heard, unrelated to the trains, but attributed to the cemetery directly above the tunnel. Speaking of which, a few coffins fell through the roof a number of years ago, leading train workers to patch the roof, which you can still see today as discolored brickwork. As for the truth, you'll have to travel up the old road and find out for yourself. Just remember that stories always have truth to them, and to carry a flashlight if you go exploring dark, haunted tunnels. In addition, along the North Bend Rail Trail, I did some digging around, pardon the pun, and I stumbled across some interesting stories that add to the rail trail mysteries. Flinderation Tunnel may be the most famous of these haunted tunnels, but it's not the only one. 50 miles west of Flinderation, more of the North Bend Rail Trail has stories to tell. In the Silver Run Tunnel, Tunnel 19 near Cairo, West Virginia, there is a tale of a woman in white who appears to unsuspecting travelers. While several woman in white ghost stories exist worldwide, the tale here goes that this woman was betrothed and jilted by the man she wanted to marry, as many tales do, and by depression or by speeding train, her life was ended. Another tragic tale comes from Tunnel 21, the Lost Tunnel. Usually a name like the Lost Tunnel invokes mysteries and magic, but this particular one is shrouded in tragedy. In an effort to widen the tunnel all along North Bend Railway, 3 workers ended up collapsing Tunnel 21 on themselves. While the other workers dug desperately to free their friends, only 2 of the 3 made it out alive. One survived with a broken ankle. A second, a Thomas Nashville Johnson, succumbed to his injuries, and a third, by the name of Harry Nichols, was buried alive, never making it out, unable even to have his remains moved to a cemetery. The tunnel was sealed, and a new one was reconstructed. Now there are reports of whispers and voices near the new and old tunnels, but perhaps that's just imagination running wild. But with death hanging around, perhaps the spirits are still trapped there, awaiting the day someone comes along to unseal, or at least acknowledge, their final resting place. Lastly, what I find most interesting is that there are no less than 20 cemeteries surrounding the Silver Run Tunnel. And if train tracks, or the trails left behind from old track trestles, are anything like rivers, energy can travel anywhere along them. I'm willing to bet there are more strange and paranormal tales along this Rails to Trails project. But for now, we'll leave them behind for our next destination. Now, I know a little bit of history about this next place because it's been featured in paranormal specials on television. Lake Shawnee has a history of conflict between white settlers and the native Shawnee people, resulting in a bloody event called the Clover Bottom Massacre. In the 18th century, a pioneer named Mitchell Clay moved his family west, settling up in land that would come to be his family's downfall. In August of 1783, 3 of Clay's children were brutally killed by a band of natives, who considered them trespassing on sacred land. Clay, in retaliation, tracked them down and slaughtered them. Death and revenge like that leaves a mark on a place, so how it came to house an amusement park 200 years later is a mystery to me. As for that, well, when 2 children died playing on the rides at the time, they closed it too, abandoning the Ferris wheel and swing ride to time. Now, a spirit of a girl, whether the one who was tragically killed by the hands of the Shawnee natives, or the one who died on the amusement park ride, or perhaps both, reside in the area, seen near the remains of the old caretaker's abandoned tractor. One cannot even mention Ghost Stories of West Virginia without mention of one of the 2 most famous haunted spots in the entire state. West Virginia Penitentiary was established in 1866, closed in 1995, and in that time, 93 men were executed there for their crimes. Most were hung, but some met their fate in the arms of Old Sparky, the electric chair. Among these prisoners, the most vile and violent was William Red Snyder, imprisoned for not only killing his father, but the father of another family, landing him back in prison a second and final time. He was the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood, but whether out of need of power or of their beliefs, no one can say for sure, but what they do know is that he was feared and respected. His prison guard, Maggie Gray, had a professional and polite relationship with Red while he was incarcerated, where they discussed civil matters such as their shared favorite soap opera, Days of Our Lives. Now, as most violent criminals do, he met his end in a gruesome manner, not in the electric chair, but at the hands of a fellow inmate and friend, Rusty Lassiter. By most accounts, he was stabbed and left for dead in his cell, but he didn't stay that way for long. Red's spirit is still there, in his old cell, as proven by his old prison guard who, as she walked by, was greeted by his usual "Morning, Mag," though the prison had been long since devoid of any living prisoners. Upon further investigations, and on Maggie Gray telling an empty cell that Rusty was released from his new prison, Red's spirit is recorded as saying that he already knew. His body, though, isn't in the prison cemetery. For all the violence and fear he emitted, Red was respected, and the prisoners and guards took up donations, burying him in Riverview Cemetery, though the citizens compromised by placing his body in an unmarked grave. No wonder his spirit is restless. Feared in life, disrespected in death, he still commands an intimidating presence long after he shed off his mortal coil. Out in Weston, West Virginia, there's this magnificent building, the largest hand-cut stone masonry building in North America, and in fact, purportedly the second largest in the world. The only catch is, like its history, this building is all facade, and hidden within its walls is a history so dark, it'll drive you mad. Our next stop is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, what was once known as the Weston State Hospital. Originally, this monumental estate was meant to house only 250 patients, but by the 1950s, it had an astonishing 2,400 souls within its walls, and over time, the conditions for those suffering mental illnesses declined, causing more madness and sickness to overrun the place.
From understaffing to underfunding, the hospital grew more derelict while those inside were subjected to torturous methods to rid them of their insanity, while others were driven insane by the methods used. After nearly half a century, the deterioration led to closure in 1994, but not before many succumbed to their treatments and their illnesses. Lack of proper care and unsanitary conditions led to an estimated 400 to 500 patients dying, though the exact number is unknown. While now home to the paranormal happenings and spooky ghost stories we know and love, only 8 spirits can be accurately said to still roam the halls of this now museum-like building. One is named Lily, a little girl who is said to have been born and lived within these walls, as her laughter and playful spirit is seen and heard by those who give her the attention she desires. Others cause dark shadows on the walls, objects thrown by no one at all, cries, screams, insane giggles, breaking glass, and bangs on the walls, all from those who desperately want out of the place that caused them so much pain in life. Today, the asylum operates as a historic and ghostly tourist destination, where nightly tours are given to those brave enough to face its terrors. Ghost stories have always had that blood-pumping, hair-raising effect on everyone, but for me, those that are true stand my hair on end like no other. Some of these are familiar to the average person, and I hope others surprised you. A good scary tale gives you a few good laughs, but a great one, a true one, now those stick with you, make you think twice about that dark corner, or having the lights off at night.
This next story is going to take a break from my usual format because we're getting close to that season and it's one of my favorite holidays. So we're going to talk about Halloween in West Virginia. Now, when I started off, my fascination was Halloween centric. I'm a traditionalist myself, fancying ghosts, pumpkins, and witches more than the blood and gore slashes it has become known for. My love of Halloween and all things spooky and mysterious came early, and the more I learned, the more love I felt for this ancient holiday celebrating the end of the year and the gathering of the fall harvest. Here, I'll deviate a bit and focus on one of West Virginia's most legendary Halloween attractions, which is located in a small community in Canova, West Virginia. You've probably heard of it as Canova's Pumpkin House. As far west as you can get in West Virginia, there's a particular house that lights up Halloween night with the most spectacular display any small community gets to see. It started over 40 years ago by a former mayor of the town of Canova, where he carved 4 pumpkins to represent his family and displayed them proudly at his family-owned pharmacy. Over the years, however, it's grown from a family tradition to a community-wide display, then expanding to a nationwide spectacle that spans the record books. This cozy home is known as the Canova Pumpkin House, and it has seen President Grover Cleveland visit during his terms, earning it a spot on the National Registry of Historic Homes. It's gone from 4 pumpkins to 500, going as far as 2,000 for the millennium, then settling nowadays to a sturdy 3,000, representing the Canovan town population. With hundreds of volunteers every year, this event brings in thousands of people to see the light display, with thousands of toothy grins and double gleaming jack-o'-lantern eyes greeting visitors from all parts of the United States. Many may ask for an explanation of such a fun, magnificent display, and the most common answer is because people love it. Visitors young and old can't wait to greet their childhood selves in front of a house on Halloween night, lit up with 3,000 pumpkins, to experience and re-experience the wonderment of that first trick-or-treat night. For one night a year, everyone can come to be reminded of days gone by and catch a glimpse of happy times in the flicker of a pumpkin eye. Halloween lives on in the hearts and minds of all those who have tasted that sweet allure of shimmering lanterns and carved pumpkin faces on a front porch. Though there are many other events I'd like to mention here, I'll leave that for the enjoyment of others to research and discover for their own Halloween traditions. For now, we move on to other, more uncanny creatures, in hopes of capturing more than an elusive spirit or two. By now, cryptid creatures aren't all that surprising to my listeners. From swamp monsters to giant ape-like Bigfoot, every state has that legend or creature that keeps people up at night and misbehaving kids out of the woods, or at least clinging to their parents as they pass by old cemeteries and forested areas. To an extent, folklore and cryptid creatures go hand in hand, where neither can be truly dismissed as simply superstition. We'll touch on a couple here, but there are many more associated with the Appalachian Mountain Range that we'll touch on later. Now, we've all heard of this next legend, and I'd be remiss not to mention the most famous of West Virginia's cryptids. Our next creature is the Mothman, and whether villain or hero, this mythic monster is certainly one for the books. It began as a simple rumor of something huge that could fly and scared a bunch of teens in the 1960s. But then, it became more, as descriptions detailed a huge creature with bright red eyes, a wingspan of 10 feet, and a hideout in an old TNT munitions factory. With witnesses popping up all over the sleepy town of Point Pleasant, the infamous Mothman was becoming a phenomenon many could not ignore. Though originally framed as a large bird or other misidentified creature, the 6-foot-tall man with wings eyewitnesses described quickly dissolved most skeptics in the media. Legends persist that Mothman foretells tragedy, similar to other reports in other states of apparitions appearing before a disaster. Some theorists have even tied Mothman sightings to predictions of the Chernobyl disaster, the Mexican swine flu, and the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. Others tell of a more sinister presence, one of which this creature, somehow, causes the disasters, such as the infamous sighting before the Silver Bridge collapse between Point Pleasant and Canaga, Ohio. Whether alien in nature, mythic figure that foresees destruction, or one that causes it, Mothman has gained notoriety and a steady fan base within the Point Pleasant community, where a statue stands and a festival is thrown in its honor, attracting locals and tourists alike to fun and festivities commemorating the mysterious figure known as the Mothman. Our next mysterious monster takes us to the banks of the Monongahela River, where legend tells of a 15-foot-long river monster lurking beneath the ripples of this flowing mass of water. Flowing from Pennsylvania through West Virginia, Native Americans told tales of a legendary creature they called the Oga, which protected their homelands. Legends say it looks like a large turtle with 2 heads that lurks beneath the water by day and hunts at night, mainly eating deer that get too close to their hunting grounds. While this all sounds like local lore and legend, real accounts of a mysterious creature date back to at least 1785, where a group of men spotted the Oga hunting. In more recent times, as late as 2015, tracks and sightings of a large reptilian creature have surfaced, sparking new hunts for this elusive beast. Regardless of myth or reality, be careful around the Monongahela River, lest you become prey to its currents or its hidden creatures. I don't know about you, but I can never get enough of those fantastical creatures. From natural to supernatural, theories abound about the truth of these cryptid creatures. But what does intrigue me, on whether or not they are real, is why so many people see them and report their existence. Sure, some could be hoaxes, but of the tons and tons of reported sightings from reputable sources, who's to deny that there are things out there that we can't understand, and creatures that have still evaded us, going undiscovered for who knows how long? West Virginia really is a great little state, filled with classic folklore and modern times, mixing traditional and contemporary into a sort of in-between. It's hard to describe, as it's a state that is often overlooked, except by those who know its bright spots and dark corners. There is so much more to see and say about this lovely spot of the Appalachian mountain range, and though I was only able to cover a small bit here, I hope it encourages you to go out, get active, seek stories, and see all the mysteries our world has to offer. There's no need to solve them, and I encourage more mysteries, more questions into the strange and unknown, to fuel yours and future generations' curiosity to no end. Thank you for listening.